สวัสดีครับท่านผู้ชมครับกลับมาพูดคุยกันอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะครับถือเป็นเรื่องราวที่นำมาซึ่งความเศร้าสลดหรือว่าหดหู่ใจสำหรับคนไทยจำนวนไม่น้อยนะครับเป็นการต้อนรับปีใหม่ 2566 ที่เต็มไปด้วยความรู้สึกจะน่าเสียใจหรือจะเรียกว่าผิดหวังสำหรับคนไทยอย่างมากโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งที่เรื่องราวที่เกิดขึ้นกับสมเด็จพระเจ้าลูกเธอเจ้าฟ้าพัชรกิติยาภาหรือว่าองค์อานะครับซึ่งเป็นพระธิดาองค์แรกของกษัตริย์วชิราลงกรณ์นะครับแล้วก็เป็นพระธิดาที่มีความเป็นไปได้สูงมากที่จะได้ขึ้นครองบัลลังก์กษัตริย์ต่อจากวชิราลงกรณ์แต่ว่าก็อย่างที่เราทราบนะครับว่าเหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นกับองค์พานั้นก็คือการที่พระองค์เกิดหัวใจวายและก็เส้นเลือดในสมองแตกเมื่อตอนค่ำของวันที่ 14 ธันวาคมที่ผ่านมาขณะที่ทรงฝึกสุนัขส่งเลี้ยงที่สนามฝึกกองพันสุนัขทหารอำเภอปากช่องจังหวัดนครราชสีมาซึ่งขณะนี้องค์พาก็ได้รับการรักษาพระองค์นะที่โรงพยาบาลจุฬาอย่างที่ทราบกันซึ่งแถลงการของสำนักพระราชวังนั้นก็ได้ออกมาฉบับแรกและก็ฉบับที่2แต่ว่าฉบับแรกที่ออกมาก็แม้จะว่ามีการอัปเดตอยู่บ้างแต่ก็ไม่ได้มีข้อความใดๆที่จะบ่งชี้ถึงพระอาการของพระองค์พาว่าพ้นจากวิกฤตแล้วนะครับขณะที่กระแสข่าวหรือการเกาะติดตามข่าวในโลกโซเชียลก็เป็นไปอย่างต่อเนื่องนะครับโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งการเกาะติดหรือการรายงานข่าวของนักข่าวต่างประเทศคนหนึ่งอย่างคุณแอนดรูแมคโกรโกมาเชลนะครับซึ่งเขาพำนักอยู่ที่ลอนดอนประเทศอังกฤษแล้วก็ติดตามข่าวเรื่องนี้อย่างต่อเนื่องทีเดียวนะแล้วก็ตั้งแต่เป็นคนแรกที่ติดตามข่าวนี้รายงานข่าวนี้อย่างต่อเนื่องจนกระทั่งเกิดการติดตามข่าวกันในโลกโซเชียลอยู่ตลอดเวลานะครับแล้วก็แอนดรูเองนั้นดูจะถึงตอนนี้แอนดรูเองก็ดูจะให้น้ำหนักหรือว่าจะเรียกว่ามีการสรุปค่อนข้างจะชัดเจนว่าองค์พานั้นได้สิ้นพระชนม์แล้วนะครับแล้วก็เขาบอกว่าได้สิ้นพระชนม์คือตามที่เขาอ้างถึงแหล่งข่าวที่เขามีนะครับว่าองค์พานั้นได้สิ้นพระชนม์ไปแล้วตั้งแต่ที่โคราชก็คือตั้งแต่วันที่14แล้วนะเพราะว่าทีมขณะที่องค์พาเกิดหัวใจวายนั้นเนี่ยทีมแพทย์ไม่สามารถที่จะช่วยชีวิตไว้ทันด้วยแล้วการรักษาคือแม้ว่าเข้าไปสู่โรงพยาบาลที่ปากช่องแต่ว่าสุดท้ายก็ช้าเกินไปนะครับการรักษาของคณะแพทย์ที่จุฬาเองในเวลานี้ก็ทำได้เพียงแค่การยื้อชีวิตคือพยายามยื้อนะใช้คำว่าพยายามยื้อชีวิตเท่านั้นซึ่งคุณแอนดรูเองก็ได้อ้างแหล่งข่าวเหมือนกันว่าการที่หัวใจหรือจะเรียกว่าพระทัยขององค์พาหยุดเต้นไปนานกว่า1 ชั่วโมงตั้งแต่ที่โคราชแล้วนั้นเนี่ยก็ไม่สามารถที่จะทำให้เชื่อมั่นได้ว่าการจะพยายามยื้อชีวิตขององค์พานั้นจะได้ผลนะครับเพราะว่าการที่หัวใจหยุดเต้นเลือดไม่สามารถที่จะไปเลี้ยงสมองได้ทำให้เซลล์สมองส่วนมากเนี่ยได้ตายไปแล้วดังนั้นการใช้เครื่องมือที่เรียกว่า ECMO machine ซึ่งเป็นการกระตุ้นให้ระบบเลือดในร่างกายได้ทำงานได้ตามปกติเนี่ยก็ไม่สามารถที่จะไปทำให้สมองที่ตายไปแล้วเนี่ยกลับมาทำงานได้เหมือนเดิมเพราะงั้นนี่คือข้อมูลหรือบทสรุปที่คุณแอนดรูเชื่อว่าโอกาสที่พระองค์พาจะมีชีวิตรอดจึงเป็นไปได้น้อยมากนะครับด้วยเหตุนี้เองจึงทำให้คุณแอนดรูเองได้โพสต์ข้อความในลักษณะที่เหมือนจะบอกว่าก็ควรจะให้พระองค์พานั้นสิ้นพระชนม์ไปอย่างคนทั่วไปไม่ต้องทรมานจะดีกว่าและให้สำนักพระราชวังและรัฐบาลไทยนั้นก็ได้บอกความจริงกับประชาชนทราบว่าอะไรคือความจริงที่เกิดขึ้นนะบอกความจริงไปเลยเพราะไม่สมควรที่จะปิดบังอย่างไรก็ตามเนี่ยจะทำให้เกิดความเข้าใจมากขึ้นแล้วก็จะทำให้ดำเนินการต่อไปได้มากขึ้นนะครับวันนี้ก็เลยมีโอกาสที่จะได้พูดคุยกับคุณแอนดรูอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะครับว่าด้วยเหตุใดเขาถึงมีความยังคงเชื่อมั่นต่อข้อเท็จจริงหรือข้อมูลที่เขามีถึงตอนนี้ว่าพระองค์พาได้สิ้นพระชนม์ไปแล้วจริงๆนะครับและเนื่องจากที่เราทราบกันนะครับว่าแอนดรูนั้นเป็นนักข่าวชาวต่างประเทศคนแรกและจะเรียกว่าเป็นคนเดียวในโลกก็ได้นะครับที่เกาะติดตามราชวงศ์ไทยอย่างใกล้ชิดที่สุดนะฮะจนกลายเป็นบุคคลที่สำนักพระราชวังไทยหมายหัวให้เป็นบุคคลอันตรายที่สุดต่อราชวงศ์ไทยในเวลานี้เราจะมาฟังว่าเขาคิดอย่างไรนะแล้วก็เขาวิเคราะห์อย่างไรกับเหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นและที่สำคัญข้อเท็จจริงที่เขามีตอนนี้เนี่ย ทำไงถึงเชื่อว่าพระองค์ผ่าได้สิ้นพระชนม์ไปแล้วไม่เชื่อในคือไม่เทคโนโลยีที่จะใช้เพื่อรักษาชีวิตองค์ผ่านั้นทำไมถึงคิดว่าไม่น่าจะเกิดเป็นผลในทางที่เป็นบวกได้นะครับนอกเหนือจากนั้นสาเหตุการประชวรของพระองค์ผ่าครั้งนี้มันมีอะไรที่ลึกกว่านั้นไหมเพราะว่ามันก็มีคำถามเหมือนกันว่าทำไมพระองค์ผ่าเป็นคนที่ออกกำลังกายบ่อยแล้วก็เป็นทหารด้วยฝึกกับทหารอยู่หลายครั้งแล้วก็ท่านก็เป็นคนที่กระฉับกระเฉงว่องไวมากแล้วอายุก็เพียงแค่44ปีทำไมหัวใจวายจึงเกิดขึ้นได้มันมีหินบางอย่างที่อยู่เบื้องหลังของการประชวรอย่างที่แบบไม่มีสาเหตุมาก่อนแบบนี้หรือเปล่านะครับรวมไปถึงว่าและหลังจากนี้ไปถ้าหากว่าพระธิดาพระองค์แรกของกษัตริย์วชิรกรซึ่งถูกคาดหวังไว้ว่าจะหมายถึงว่าทางสำนักทางราชวงศ์เองหรือว่าทางสมราชวังเองก็มีความคาดหวังเหมือนกันว่าพระองค์พาก็น่าจะเป็นบุคคลที่จะเป็นบุคคลที่จะขึ้นมาเป็นกษัตริย์ต่อจากรัชกาลที่10นะครับแต่ถ้าเมื่อต้องสิ้นพระชนม์ไปแล้วแบบนี้เนี่ยจะกระทบกระเทือนต่อราชวงศ์ไทยต่อการเมืองไทยต่อสังคมไทยแค่ไหนอย่างไรอันนี้เป็นหนึ่งที่อยากฟังการวิเคราะห์ของแอนดรูและที่สำคัญก็คือว่าเรายังมีความหวังอยู่ไหมว่าจะมีโอกาสได้รอดนะครับวันนี้ก็เลยจะพูดคุยกับคุณแอนดรูนะครับ Hi Andrew thank you so much for being with me tonight สวัสดีครับ
Thanks for inviting me. So,
How are you?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
Okay, not too bad, but it's okay. All right, thank you very much for giving the time for me. And the first thing that I want to confirm that even that so many things have been developing from 2 days ago, and then until now, why you are still confirmed that Ompa is dead or passed away? What do you believe, and why you just have like conclusion that she already passed away or dead?
Sure. Well, first of all, before I answer that fully, I think the really important thing to say is that some people accuse me of being anti-monarchist. They think I'm pleased that this has happened to Ompa. They say it's disgraceful, it's hateful. So I just want to make clear, I mean, I was very sorry to hear this news. I don't deserve any, suffering on anybody or for anybody to die at such a young age. But the reason I do this job as a journalist is because I believe that people should know the truth, right? And unfortunately, the Thai monarchy for centuries has never told people the truth. And this has already happened this week, where I reported what happened to Ompa on Wednesday, and it wasn't until about 16 hours later on Thursday that the palace actually released a statement, and even that statement wasn't true. So the reason I'm focusing on this is because I just believe Thai people should know the truth about their royal family and about their leaders. But I don't have any animosity or to Ompa. I would hope that she would get better. But I'm fairly convinced that unfortunately she never will, because I mean, according to the sequence of events that we know now, she was at this army dog training event in Pak Chong district. She collapsed and was not breathing suddenly. And initially that was reported as a heart attack or a heart condition, including by the palace. But our latest information is that it was actually something in her brain. She had a blood clot in her brain that stopped her ability for her heart to beat and for her to breathe. So she collapsed. There was CPR done on her for, I think, about an hour, according to my sources, before she managed to get to Pak Chong Hospital. By the time she arrived in Pak Chong Hospital, she was already dead, because her heart had not been beating for an hour. She hadn't been breathing for an hour, and at that stage, no one can survive that. You can't, you can't survive to have no, heart or breathing for an hour. But because of who she is, of course, the doctors carried on trying to save her, because nobody dares to be responsible for the death of somebody so senior in the royal family. Meanwhile, Vajir Longhorn was rushing there in a military helicopter, and the best intensive care helicopter in Thailand was also rushing there from Bangkok Hospital, and we were able to track that on flight tracking apps, which is how we know about this. By the time Vajir Longhorn got there, it was really clear that she was dead, and sources who have told me that he wept, when he got to, he just wept because he knew it was over.
Mm-hmm.
But because of who he is, he demanded, well, keep trying everything. So they kept trying for several more hours. And eventually they gave up. By this time, it was early morning on Thursday. It was about 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. on Thursday morning. They flew her back to Bangkok. Mm-hmm. Because Chulalongkorn Hospital has no helicopter landing facilities, they had to fly her to Bangkok Hospital and transfer her by road to Chula Hospital. So this took such a long time. So by the time she was put on this so-called ECMO system, mm-hmm. which is a very sophisticated thing that basically keeps you alive. If your heart's not beating, you can't breathe. This will kind of keep you artificially alive. So it's used as really as a last resort for people to try to save them. Mm-hmm. But if you're already dead, like she was, like she hadn't any oxygen to her brain for 8 hours, actually probably more than 10 hours. There's no way back from that. Mm-hmm. And so, everybody I've spoken to, I've got a lot of sources on this story. They all told me right from the start when they said she's dead. Mm-hmm. But what's happening, and this is one of the things that I find quite, depressing about the story, is that they're keeping her artificially alive, technically alive, mm-hmm. Even though she can't breathe, her heart's not beating, her brain is dead, but they're keeping her kind of technically alive on this machine while they wait to decide what day to announce it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt she's dead, and I guess that's the most important point to make, is that, I can assure everybody watching your interview, there's no way she's going to suddenly, come back. It's over, and it's very sad, and I'm not celebrating it, but she's dead.
Yeah. Why did the medical team surround her, not rescue her in that moment, or they don't have any equipment, or they don't have any expertise to save her or to rescue her in that time?
Well, from what I can gather about what happened to her, she could never have been saved right from the moment she collapsed, because she had a catastrophic issue in her brain, mm-hmm. That stopped her breathing, it stopped her heart, and the only way she could ever have possibly survived, if this has happened in a hospital or something, a specialist hospital already, so someone could have immediately intervened. Mm-hmm. But she was at an army dog event in Patchong, so obviously it took time to get her to hospital. Apparently her personal nurse was so distraught that she couldn't really help, so a soldier gave her CPR all the way to hospital. Mm-hmm. And broke some of her ribs, which by the way is normal when you're trying to save someone and give them CPR. Right. It's normal that you might break some ribs. There's nothing wrong with that. It shows that you're working really hard.
Yes.
But it just didn't work. And even I don't know much about Patong Nana Hospital, but I'm sure it's a good hospital. But I don't think they have the facilities to deal with a catastrophic issue like this. Which is why she was eventually brought back to Bangkok. So I don't think she could ever have been saved from the moment that she collapsed.
Yeah, from the first time when she collapsed, two things happened to her. One is heart attack, and then another one is about the brain bleeding. So it's these two things happen in the same time.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not a big medical expert, but as I understand from my sources, the issue started with the blood clot in the brain, and that that meant that because she had this blood clot in her brain, that then stopped her heart beating. So that was the heart attack.
Oh,
But sometimes your heart might have a problem first, right? And then your brain gets problems and so on. But in this case, I think it started in her brain. It was a blood clot in the brain, and that affected her ability to, because the brain has to instruct the heart to beat, and it has to instruct your lungs to breathe.
okay.
So that's the sequence of events as I understand it. It was some kind of blood clot in the brain.
So that is the first problem. I mean, the big problem for her. So
exactly, and then it caused these cascading other events.
Yeah. So, are you have any question about that? Because many people said she's quite like unusual, right? For 44 women, and she have very good, healthy exercising, training with the military many times. How can be a heart attack or have a blood clotting in its brain? What do you think? Do you have anything that just hint or guiding you to think a different way? Why she's very quick? Because she's very healthy and she's the military also, but and 44. What's wrong with that? So
yeah, I mean it's.
Yeah,
sorry, you're right. It's very rare to see somebody who's apparently very healthy dying at 44 just suddenly with no warning. I don't think there's anything suspicious about it. Some of the conspiracy theorists are thinking, well, did somebody try to, so did somebody cause this? I think that's highly unlikely. Some of the people who are anti-vaccine are claiming that it might be because she should be vaccinated. I don't believe that personally. I mean, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. It's quite a divisive issue, but I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've heard she had some issues, that she was on medication for depression. She'd been working so hard doing military training. She was exhausted, and that this was why a nurse was assigned to follow her around at all times, because there were worries about her health. And I think also, I mean, it's an awful thing. It's quite rare, but sometimes, fairly young people do suddenly die, Obviously, when it's a princess and possibly even the next monarch, people are going to ask questions and have suspicions. But I just think it was a tragic kind of, tragic chance, really. I don't think there's anything significant behind it.
Yeah, but someone said that this is going to be like a genetic problem. Did you think this way?
It's possible, because as we know, for generations, the Thai royals have married their relatives. Now, if we look at her parents, Longkorn and Somsaweli were cousins, right?
Yeah.
So they were very closely related, and I think that does make you susceptible to health problems, and we've seen this in various royal families all over the world. And it's not just that they were cousins, but going back through their parents and grandparents and so on, many of them had married cousins and relatives. So I think that does make you susceptible to health problems, and that's maybe one reason we've seen so many kind of health issues in the Thai monarchy. The Thai monarchy is kind of a blood cult, where royal blood is kind of sacred. So you've got to marry somebody who's of the similar rank or somebody who's got royal blood. So yeah, I think this has led to a lot of health problems passed down through the generations.
From that you mentioned earlier that maybe she's have many things to do and have like a depressed or something is very thinking about something or serious about something, or they have depressed about her duty, about her work to do for protect his fathers or anything. That's going to be another issue also. What do you think? And it's because we saw her on TV when she's appeared to the public. what do you think? She has something in her mind to, handle with something very serious about her, something about her life is very difficult for her, something like that is maybe pressure on her also. What do you think? This is the cause that she got a heart attack or,
No, look, I don't want to really speculate about her mental health because I don't think that's appropriate. But as far as I know, I have heard she was depressed about a couple of things. As far as I know, that doesn't cause, depression is a very serious and horrible illness, but it doesn't cause you to suddenly have a blood clot in your brain. So I don't think they're directly related.
So, yeah, and from the first time when you, because when Ongpa had, collapsed or had an attack, it's how long that you get the information about that, and what the way that you get that hint of the situation.
Sure. Well, I have to be very careful about how I talk about my sources, just because it's so dangerous for them. I mean, they're taking a huge risk to talk to me, and so I can't go into too much detail about that. And I'd rather do journalism where I can say, who's told me what, but when you're covering the Thai monarchy, you just can't do that. You have to deal with secret sources. But what happened was that on Wednesday afternoon, my time, I got a message from a very well connected Thai source, telling me that Ongpa had collapsed. It was a very serious emergency, and that the king was on the way in a helicopter. So this was really huge. So I checked with another very good source of mine, and said, have you heard anything about what's happening? And they confirmed it. So then, by this time, I don't know if the king had arrived at the hospital already, but it was very quick. After this had happened, that I got the news, which is purely thanks to my sources. It's not really thanks to any of my skill, but I heard it really, really fast, and because I'd confirmed it with two sources, I started reporting it. And what often happens is that when you start reporting a huge story like this, and you're the only person reporting it, because at this stage, obviously, nobody really reported it for, until the next day. And even now, nobody's really saying what's happened. So a lot of, very brave Thai people who had information about this story, once they saw I was reporting it, they came forward to me with information which I was able to verify and which was credible. So the number of sources started to build. So, it's very hard to know what's happening in the palace right now. A couple of years ago, I had really, really good sources within Vajiralongkorn's entourage in Bavaria, and they were taking big risks to give me information. But he was enraged about this. So there was all these witch hunts among his entourage. People with mobile phones getting checked. If people were suspected of talking to me, they'd be tortured and so on. It was awful. So most people had to stop talking. And my level of insight into what's happening in the palace is much less now. There's a bunch of things it's hard to know. But on this story, people were brave enough. Sources were brave enough, because it was such an important story, to take the risk to give me the information, which is how I got it so quickly.
And okay, so now you truly believe that Ongpa, dead already. So, what do you think when the Thai palace going to be announced death of Ongpa, or maybe just waiting for something, or just announce that you post on your Facebook that the Thai palace going to be announced in maybe 2 or 3 days, so that it's going to be happen, or they're going to be that way, or what do you think that the Thai government or even Thai palace that they can accept the truth that she already passed away and announce to the people?
I mean, according to my sources, there's still a big debate about this within the palace. But quite a large fraction of people are saying they should wait until after New Year to announce it, because they're quite worried that if it's announced before New Year, the New Year celebrations around the country are cancelled after we've already had cancellations because of COVID in the past few years. They're worried it will kind of cause more anger towards the monarchy, which is already at quite a high point. And if you look on social media, you'll find a lot of young people saying, you know, why should I cancel? Should I have my New Year cancelled because of the death of somebody I don't even really care about? So I think they are worried about that. And so that they may wait until early January to do it. And of course, it's not unusual for the Thai monarchy to behave like this. Bhumibol was basically dead for months before they turned his machines off. He was just being kept artificially alive, the same way that Ong Ba is now. And Bhumibol's sister Galyani, when she died a couple of decades ago, they waited until January the 2nd to announce it because they didn't want to, you know, disturb people's New Year's. They waited until January 2. So I think a lot of people in the palace wanted to wait until early January, but I doubt if that's tenable, because they would have tried to have kept her accident secret. If I hadn't reported it first, you know, they probably would have put out a statement saying, oh, she's had a little issue, she's in hospital. They would not have admitted how serious it was, and then they could have had time to wait until the moment that they chose, you know, to announce it. But I don't know, because a lot of people have read my reporting, I'm wondering if they can really wait until the early January to admit the truth, because the longer they wait to admit something that most people already know is true, the worse they will look. So I think they're still figuring it out. And it's an awful situation because, you know, she's not being allowed to die with dignity. She's being kept artificially alive on a machine while people in the palace, you know, try to figure out, well, what day should we break the news? And it makes me really sad, this whole thing. It's not a way to treat someone, you know. Let them go, let them die with a bit of dignity.
So, but based on your sources, you don't have any light, anything that can believe or can show us that she's gonna be, you know, come back, or her life maybe, you know, she's still alive. You don't have any evidence that can confirm about she can be back, or, you know, she's still alive. Nothing, right? No.
There's nothing. She was already dead on Wednesday afternoon when she got to Nana Hospital. If, you know, look, if I'm wrong, if she comes back, obviously, you know, it'll show that all my sources are wrong. And it'll be such a miracle that I'll maybe even become a royalist. But nobody's ever come back from this kind of thing. It's just impossible. She's had no brain function for 48 hours now. She's had no heartbeat. It's just not going to happen. And I think I think it's just sad that Thai people are being they haven't been told the truth. So all these people are coming out and praying, and, you know, soldiers are all doing these ceremonies to pray, and monks have been told to pray, and the Islamic organizations have told their followers to pray for her. All of this when the regime knows she's already dead. But one reason for it is that they can use this to try to create, you know, royalist propaganda. You know, they can use this narrative of how Ong Ba is very ill, we've all got to pray for her, to try to revive some support for the monarchy. But it's a very cynical thing to do because she's dead, and people in Thailand just need to be told that.
I see. Yeah, even they can, you know, bring very high medical technology to save her, but no, right? So
There's no way after she had no heartbeat for so long.
Okay.
There's no way she's coming back.
So just another point that okay, if he already passed away or she dead, what do you think? What do you think about the King Vajiralongkorn right now? What do you have any sources that what gonna be what he going to do and what he's thinking now? What he's he's doing now?
Well, look, I mean, as everybody knows, I'm also not a fan of Vajiralongkorn. I think he's a disaster for Thailand, but he's also a father, and he's lost his eldest daughter, and that must be an awful thing. So, we have to have some compassion for him. And when we saw him going to Chulalongkorn Hospital today, I mean, he looked distraught, and he's looking increasingly unhealthy. He's stooped. He's looking unwell. So in this situation, I think we have to just feel sorry for him, because whatever else he's done, he's just lost his daughter, and but also it's very significantly in the larger scale of things. She was going to be the key to royal succession. It wasn't clear if they would have a female monarch next, but she was kind of groomed for it. But at the very least, they would have made Dipengorn monarch, but she would have been regent, because Dipengorn has his own issues. He can't ever really be a monarch on his own. So she was kind of the big hope for the monarchy, for the next generation after the next royal succession.
Right.
And now she's gone. It's a huge problem for the monarchy. And I think this, I'm sure Vajiralongkorn is grieving, but he's also going to be wondering what they can do, because with Ongpa gone, there's so few options for them.
But he had like 7 kids, right? So that maybe some of them can be the next king. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got a huge amount of kids, and it's kind of ironic that there's so few options for a successor. The reason, I mean, it's quite a complicated history, but as I'm sure you know, I mean, Ongpa was his first child, born with Princess Somsawali, who was the niece of Queen Sirikit. And Sirikit had forced him into this marriage because she wanted the Kitiakara bloodline to, become dominant in the royal family. So she forced him into a marriage that he didn't really want. And Ongpa was born 44 years ago. And so she's the most royal of all the king's children, because, if you care about that kind of thing, because she was born from a princess and a prince. But meanwhile, Vajiralongkorn left. He left Somsawali quite early, took up with Mombens, Yuvatida, and they quite quickly had 4 sons and a daughter. And so for Ongpa, when she was born, because she was a woman and because the Thai monarchy is still a male-dominated institution, once Vajiralongkorn was having sons with somebody else, it looked like they would be the heirs. And Sirikit was furious because this undermined her plans. She wanted to have a Kitiakara to take over, and Ongpa is basically half Kitiakara. Then in 1996, when Vajiralongkorn, banished Mombens from the palace, and because he'd already, chosen Srilat, his third wife, instead, Sirikit saw her opportunity. So she said, okay, we'll allow you to divorce Mombens, but you have to banish your 4 sons, because they were the 4, dynastic opportunities. So this is why explains why when they were banished in 1996 and they ended up in America, he went back to England to get his daughter, who's now named Sirivanavari. She had a different name back then. So he took his daughter back, but not his four sons. And the whole reason for that is because Sirikit had demanded this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he had no more sons, then Ongpa would have become the next monarch.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when Dipangorn was born, which was kind of unexpected,
mm-hmm.
That changed everything again. But now it's become clear that he can't really reign. So because he has he has autism.
Okay.
And he's never really been seen to speak in public. It's I don't want to say anything cruel. I mean, people with autism, severe autism, it must be quite an awful thing, or a very difficult thing for them. But it's very hard to be a monarch and do all these public duties when you have severe autism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's never really ever been heard to speak in public.
It seemed for Thai people, the Vajralongkorn tried to, to give the signal for, to do so many things to show the people in Thailand that Tipangorn going to be the next king, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody in the king's inner circle has these Tipangorn badges, right? That they wear as a kind of sign that you are close to the king. So that's why I think the most likely thing that was going to happen was that Dipangorn would be made the next king, but Ongpa would have been the regent. They would have been a kind of double act. So she would have done a lot of the duties, a lot of the public speaking.
Right.
He would have been king. Mainly because of the conservatism of the Thai royals. That
we don't.
It's going to be huge for a woman to become a king.
We didn't have any sign from Vajralongkorn that want to promote Ongpa to be the king, right? Even they try to, she's very smart, she's very active, and then do so many things for the country. But I didn't have any sign from the Vajralongkorn that want to promote his daughters to become a king. But for Tipangorn, it's so many sign that he want his son to be the king, right?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think he clearly loves Tipangorn. It's a kind of interesting relationship, and it's one of the more human things about him, that he doesn't show much love to a lot of people in his life, but I think he clearly does love him. And people have these Dipangorn badges, but I think he must. I mean, he must know that Dipangorn can't really reign alone. Right. And meanwhile, Ongpa, she was doing a law degree at Cornell. She was made ambassador to Vienna. She's done paratrooper training and so on. She's done military training. So I think she was being groomed to be the next monarch. And it's certainly what Sirikit would have wanted, but Sirikit's out of the picture now. But now this has happened. Who you're going to have? You can't. I mean, I don't see how you could have Dipangorn on his own. Sri Vanavari, I think she's so unpopular, and in Thailand, and she's got her ridiculous fashion line, and she just allegedly composed a symphony, but she doesn't seem like monarch material. So that's why my theory is they're going to have to go back to the boys in America, the exiled sons, and specifically one of them, Vajrason, who's a successful lawyer in New York.
That's right.
So my theory would be it's now quite likely that he could become the next king of Thailand.
So what do you think is going to be happen? That's one of the son of Yochida going to be come back to Thailand to be the king?
I think so. I mean, there's four sons who are exiled, right?
Right.
And three of them have no interest in becoming king, and one of them, I think the eldest one, who would have been the number one in line, he married an American woman, so he's out. But Vajrason, who's a nice guy, he's a successful lawyer in New York. Very talented guy, very smart guy. And in fact, all of the four sons who are exiled are actually really nice and really talented and smart, which kind of shows damage that being part of the Thai monarchy does to you in Thailand is when, they got kicked out, which seemed like a disaster for them, but they all grew up to be, really decent people. So Charisarn has been courted over the past couple of years by some royalists, especially old royalists who support Bhumibol and so on, who are kind of terrified about the next royal succession. So they've already made overtures to him. They've had informal discussions. You've probably noticed that he's been doing a lot more high-profile events in the US, charitable events. He's been to Laos, visiting temples and so on. And he's the only one of the boys that actually he's interested. He would do it, I think. And there is a channel of discussion open with him. And so, given the fact that there's still this conservatism that it has to be a man, given Dippengoren's, issues, and given the lack of an alternative candidate, really, I think it's looking increasingly likely that he'll rehabilitate Vajrasaur. Because the main obstacle to this always was Sirikit, who Sirikit wanted them gone. Now Sirikit's out of the game. She's she's senile. She can't really intervene in anything. There's not really any obstacle to bringing the sons back if they want to come. So I think, and none of this is going to happen that quickly, right? But I think over the next couple of years, you would probably see an attempt to rehabilitate the sons, and especially Vajrasaur. And, because I think they're the only credible, he's the only real successor that I can see.
But the Vajralongkorn, he's already, expelled, right? Just like just he not accept that his son and already abandoned full son in America. So that can become a king if the king Vajralongkorn didn't like them to come back.
Well, I think Vajralongkorn would have to accept it, but let's look at Dippengoren. Dippengoren's mother is, she's also basically, she's not exiled abroad, but she's stuck in Ratchabun. She's basically in house arrest. She's been accused of doing terrible things. So, even if they wanted to choose Sirvanavari as the next monarch, first of all, she's female, and secondly, her mum is Mom Benz, who's the same mum as the four boys. So I think, unless Vajralongkorn fathers another child with somebody, he's out of options now. And I think it would have to be, as I said, one of the four sons, and there's only one of them that wants to do it. And I think he'd be a pretty good king, certainly better than the current one. But so that's my analysis of the succession dynamics. Yeah, I think it'd be great for Thailand to have a female monarch one day, but I'm not sure if the palace is ready for it, even though the constitution does allow it.
How about Prince Sirinthorn, Pratep? She can become to saving the monarch in Thai.
I mean, it's possible, but look, she's getting much older. She has no children, and obviously never will have any. So it's a kind of a dead end. It's a dynastic dead end. Even if they brought her in, and obviously there's well-known animosity between Vajralongkorn and her.
That's right.
So I think the prospect of her being brought in, I think it's very unlikely, and it wouldn't solve their problem, because since she's got no kids, where do they go after her? There's nobody to come next. So this is the problem they face.
Yeah. So how about the queens right now, the Sutida, right? I can't remember the name. Sutida. So if one day she become pregnant, so that is another option, right?
It's an option, but it hasn't happened by now, and she's reaching the age where it's pretty unlikely to happen. So you would have thought, because Vajiralongkorn has been with her since 2007. She's been his main mistress since 2007 until he met Goy in about 2014, and then he kind of abandoned Sutida. But now Goy's out and Sutida's kind of back. It's this constant, drama of Vajiralongkorn's private life. But so he was with her for many, many years. I think if they were going to have a kid together, they would have done it already, but it's never happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's possible to be a sudden royal child announced, and that'll change the game. But as it stands at the moment, I would think it would have to be Vajiralongkorn in the US.
You just confirm that maybe the son of the Yuchida from US going to be the more appropriate to be.
Well, it's not up to me to say who's the most appropriate, but I think he's the most likely.
Okay.
Because he's willing to do it, and I don't see any other credible candidate.
Right. So do you have any update about what we call the Concord Sininat?
Oh yeah.
What is Goy, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
Goy.
What is she? How is she doing? And then where is now? Because she's already disappeared from the public for a long time. What's going on about her?
Yeah, well, as far as I know, she's back in Munich at this giant hotel that the king used to stay in. And as you know, it's been a big drama with this relationship where the Vajiralongkorn became obsessed with her. He sent Sutida off to live in Switzerland so he could spend time with Goy and this harem of women who were organized by Goy. And then they had this sudden falling out, and she was put in jail. Goy was put in jail. And she was in there for, she's in there for months and months. And then suddenly Vajiralongkorn, he missed her, so he decided to forgive her. So she was suddenly released. And, all of this was done. I mean, it's kind of shocking. She was put in jail without any trial, without any due process. And this is 21st century Thailand, and the king is supposed to be under the constitution. Of course, we know that he's not. And he just throws his mistress into jail. Obviously, it was a big shock for the country when Goy was named consort, because this is a role that we haven't had for more than a century. And in the 21st century, most countries, including Thailand, they don't really want to legitimize having two wives. So and then that there was also the drama that there was even gossip last year they were going to make Goy the second queen, and because there was huge opposition within the family, so he dropped the idea. So this is this big drama with Goy, but now she's back in Munich as far as I know. But one interesting thing is that Ong Pa was one of the biggest supporters of Sutida.
Yes.
Queen Sutida. They're about the same age actually, and they were friends. And so when Vajiralongkorn was wanting to make Goy his second queen and thinking of abandoning Sutida, and it was humiliating for Sutida. I mean, last year the king was going out for Valentine's Day with Sutida, and they're always wearing matching outfits. And often you'd see them, all three of them, at a royal event, and it must have been humiliating for Sutida, when three of them are in a golf buggy driving through a town, waving to supporters, and Goy is in the back seat. I mean, it must be humiliating for somebody's wife to have that going on. And Ong Pa was the one that really stood up for Sutida the whole time. Yes. And I think she's one of the reasons why Goy is now back in Munich and Sutida's still there. But now if Ong Pa gone, that does change things. So I think Sutida I'm sure Sutida's very, very upset because she's lost a friend, but it's also undermined her position quite significantly because her biggest ally is gone.
That's right. So very, focus on Goy. she, what was she gonna do after Ongpa passed away? So that is an interesting point too. So how about the Queen Sirikit? Do you have any update about her right now? She's what she's doing now, and what is situation about Queen Sirikit right now? She's still in hospital, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Sirikit's been out of the game since July 2012 when she had a massive stroke, and she's never really been well since. She's never been heard to speak in public since July 2012, so that's more than a decade now. There's a few photographs of her released where she's a kind of very frail, white-haired old woman. It's clear that she's got severe issues from her stroke. She probably has, she's probably senile. She doesn't really have any significant political influence anymore. And until 2012, she did. I mean, she was probably, because she was so much more assertive than Bhumibol, right? And she had so many allies that until 2012, she was one of the biggest players on the chessboard.
Right.
It was a bit like a chessboard where the queen can do all these moves, right? And the king can only do these little moves. And that was a bit like the situation with Bhumibol and Sirikit. She was probably more influential than he was in many ways. But yeah, she's been out of the game for a decade. There's no chance of her coming back. And so this is another reason why I think there's a possibility for the exiled sons in America to be rehabilitated, because Sirikit was the main reason why they were exiled. And now she's not in a position to intervene. But I don't know how much how conscious she is of events these days. I mean, most of my sources tell me she's really quite senile, but if she does understand that Ongpa has passed away, she'll be devastated, because Ongpa was the person she wanted to be the next monarch, and now that's not going to happen.
Right. So yeah, his uncertain future for the monarch in Thailand is seem to be that way. But from your Facebook that you post that if days of Ongpa dates, that it decides the thing that complicate that for elections in March, right? That you say that for in your Facebook. What do you think? What do you mean by that? The death of Ongpa can affect the elections in next year. I mean, in a couple months in March.
Well, I think a lot of the government, especially private, they would love to delay the elections because they know they're going to lose. But in fact, the king has never been that close to Prayut anyway. It looks like Anutin is going to be the big winner in these elections, because all these MPs are flocking to Phumjaitai now because they think it's going to be the big winner. And Anutin has some connections with the Jirlongkorn. And the only way they could delay the election is if they announced, months and months of mourning. And I don't think they can do that. I think the mourning will have to be quite brief for Ongpa, because of the way that the sentiment to the monarchy has changed. They can't sort of say, oh, we're going to mourn for 6 months and we'll cancel elections. So having thought about it a bit more, I think it's highly unlikely that the elections will be affected by this. It was a thought that went through my head, and some of my sources were also thinking, well, do you think they're going to use this to delay the election? But after I considered it more, I think it's pretty unlikely.
So maybe the election going to be, confirmed that going to be happen or held in the March in next year. So that is another.
It seems like it because the Supreme Court has approved these laws, which was the major stumbling block. And clearly all the MPs are pretty sure it's going to happen in March, because they're all, switching parties, most of them going to Phumjaitai. So yeah, I think it's going to go ahead, and it'll be a contest between Phumjaitai and Pheu Thai. The the old allies of Thaksin who betrayed him back in 2008, you know, fighting against his proxy party. It'll be an interesting battle.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I just curious that if the Vajiralongkorn is passed away, I mean, by any nominate or decide to be who gonna be the next monarch, gonna happen is that way, or do the Thai palace right now, you know, come to talking and then very serious about who gonna be the next king after the Ompa pass away? Do they have are very serious about talking about who gonna be the next king, or it depends on Vajiralongkorn right now?
Well, no, I'm sure there's different factions in the palace are all thinking about it very seriously. I mean, I know they are, because people have been reaching out to the sons, the exiled sons in America. Other people are maybe backing Dipengorn. A lot of people were backing Ompa. But Vajiralongkorn has never named a designated heir. So if he dies, if he drops dead, you know, suddenly, which looking at the state of his health, we can't rule it out, it would be a bit of chaos. And there'd probably be different factions of the palace all arguing about it. In theory, it would pass to, according to palace law, it would pass to Dipengorn, because he's the son. And he's, you know, the other four sons have been banished. But if they, you know, and maybe, you know, maybe some factions of the military, they wouldn't mind Dipengorn because he'd be easy to control, you know.
I see.
So maybe they would go for that. But, you know, I think there would be some pressure from some factions of the palace. And when I say the palace, I also mean the kind of the royalist elites, you know, because a lot of the royalists, they can't stand Vajiralongkorn. You know, they all loved the previous king, but a lot of Thai royalists, you know, can't stand the current king. And so they would be looking for one of the sons in the US, but I think it'd be a mess. I mean, if Vajiralongkorn was to die suddenly before they put another succession plan in place, it would be a serious mess, and it could get quite ugly.
Yeah. So what do you think about the what we call privy council, right?
Privy council.
Privy council. Do they do anything to save the monarchy right now, or everything it depends on Vajiralongkorn? Because I didn't see any action from Privy Council.
Well, look, most of the Privy Council are about 100 years old, and they're ancient, and they don't really do anything. And even some of the younger ones, like Suryud, are pretty ancient. But then you do have these other very powerful people in the royal household, like Apirat in particular. Apirat is probably one of the most powerful people in the palace, and is very ambitious. So some of these people, they'll be trying to figure out a plan, for sure, because they want to preserve, you know, the dynasty. They want to preserve the monarchy, but they're running out of options. And so, you know, it's only been 2 days since this you know, tragic death of Ompa, but over time, they'll be trying to figure out some kind of plan.
And after, if we think, okay, Ompa, you know, or Thai monarchy had been the big crisis right now because Ompa passed away or dead. Do you think this is the way, if something is, this crisis can then give the way for the Thai monarch to be reformed? What do you think? Because many young generation or many Thai people, they try to, you know, want to reform the monarch. I mean, the king in Thailand. So this is the chance that can reform the Thai monarch in Thailand. What do you think?
I don't think reform will ever happen voluntarily from the monarchy until Vajiralongkorn dies. Because he hates the protests. We've seen that he refuses to even consider anything, any concessions at all. He surrounds the Grand Palace with shipping containers because he doesn't want protesters to set foot on royal soil, all this stuff. So, he's destroying all these old monuments from the 1932 era because, so his whole project has been to try to move back towards being an absolute monarch. And there's no way he'll voluntarily agree to reform of the monarchy. The only way it will happen during his lifetime is if he gets overthrown. But once he dies, I don't see any way they cannot have reform of the monarchy because any successor will not be strong enough to, stand against it.
Right.
I mean, if it's Dippengorn, he's going to be a kind of puppet ruler. Because he has these issues so he can't really assert any real influence at all. If it's Sirvanavari, I don't know. She would probably try to. She seems quite haughty and anti-change, but she'd be so unpopular that it'd be hard for her to resist reform of the monarchy. And if it's the Gerard that's on in the US. He's quite a progressive guy, and I'm pretty sure he would favor reform of the monarchy. So yeah, this is the problem that Thailand is kind of stuck. It can't really move on until the current king dies, and that could happen tomorrow, or it could happen in 20 years. We just don't know. But until that happens, it's hard to see real progress towards democracy being made, or the country will remain a kind of fake democracy until the end of the current reign.
Yeah, interesting. So the last question that do you have so many, you very, put many effort to cover, to report, to investigate about Thai monarchs for a long time, and you are the most wanted in Thailand and Thai monarchy, and many of Thai ultra Thai loyalists, say, what did you do right now? You try to destroy Thai monarchy. More than to save Thai monarchy, and try to insult our king, our monarch. What do you want to say? You just say a little bit earlier, but the end, what do you want to talk to these kind of people in Thailand?
Sure. Well, there's some people in Thailand that will never listen to me or never trust me. But the main thing is that I don't believe Thailand can have real democracy until Thais know the truth about the politics and the monarchy and what the military is doing. They have to have access to this information, because many Thais, when they grow up, they're just told a bunch of lies. And the reason I do what I do is because I believe Thai people have a right to have information. It doesn't mean I hate the monarchy. The whole reason I got involved with covering the Thai monarchy in the first place was not because I hate the monarchy or I hate royal people. It's really because of Article 112, and I'm a journalist. And there's this law that says, right, there's all these things that are true, but you're not allowed to say them. And if you say them, you'll face years in jail. And as a journalist, I just thought that's wrong. And if some organization is telling you you're not allowed to tell the truth about them, that's a sign that this organization is part of the problem, and somebody should find a way to tell the truth. So that's what I did. And I mean, it's been amazing in the past couple of years to see how a lot of the work I've been doing and other people have been doing, it's really got through to the younger generation now. So, they've got very, very different ideals and principles from the old dinosaur generation. They've totally reconsidered, their view of the monarchy and so on. and so that's been, I mean, it's been so good to see that some of the work I did and that other people did who were, you know, who became exiles to break the lèse majesté law.
Mm-hmm.
The work's paid off, and I think we've changed the view of a whole new generation. So I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, right. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that you're giving your time for me. All right, thank you so very much.
It's great to talk, Kun Jom, and yeah, I'd be happy to talk again sometime. So keep in touch.
How about your health? Your health is okay? Your health?
Not too bad. Still alive.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Cheers.
good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you so much. สวัสดีครับขอบคุณมาก